Good morning and welcome to today's Subnet Session, coming to you live from our studios here in South Australia. My name is Ben Lukes and I'm really pleased to be bringing you today our very first webinar with CrowdStrike, focusing on their 2026 Global Threat Report. And joining me today, I have Halim Santoso from CrowdStrike. Halim is the Solutions Architect Director for Asia Pacific and Japan. Halim, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Ben, happy to be here. Thanks for the invite as well. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much, Halim, and really looking forward to hearing your insights from this report. I know when we were talking earlier and coming up with the original title for this webinar, we decided to run with the 29-minute threat because I think that was one of the key takeaways from the recent threat report was the fact that the actual breakout time for a cyber adversary to enter into a system has reduced down to 29 minutes, if not faster. I assume that's probably one of the key takeaways from the recent report from CrowdStrike.
Yeah, that's just one of the main metrics that we're tracking year on year from CrowdStrike's Global Threat Report. But there are a few other key stats that I really be interested to share with everyone here on the call. Net of it all, it's also around what the insights of those stats mean for us as defenders, and I'll talk about those as well, and around the main big topic on AI as well.
Fantastic, Halim. Well, I don't want to give any spoilers right now because I know I've seen a preview of your slides already. Speaking of which, I'll bring them up onto the stage right now. But a lot of really interesting content to cover here, Halim. So please let me hand over the microphone to you. And just for our regular viewers as well, a bit of housekeeping. You may notice we are using a new webinar platform here at Subnet, but you will see the chat and Q&A panel on your right-hand side there as well. So please, by all means, feel free to submit a question. And a recording of this webinar, of course, will be sent out to everyone who has registered for this webinar. So all that aside, Halim, I'll hand over to you and really look forward to hearing the presentation.
Thanks, Ben. I'd like to start off with a quick quote, and I find it very apt, especially around this topic of cybersecurity, right? We've all heard of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. He's got numerous quotes in there. The one that really struck me, though, right, of all the thousands of quotes that he's said in there is that if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles, right? And it goes on some more, right? But if you don't know yourself, but if you know yourself but not the enemy, right, for every victory gained, you will suffer some form of defeat. Now, that, in my view, really highlights what I'm going to talk about today. Knowing the enemies, knowing who we're dealing with, right? And I believe we all agree in this cybersecurity space, it is an ongoing war, right? A war between us defenders against the adversaries. And that's really what I would say in terms of let's try to understand our enemies. Who are the adversaries? And of course, I start off with just some disclaimer, right? There are some mentions in here, presentations talking about some forward-looking statements, right? Any forward-looking statements made in here, base it off of our beliefs, based off the telemetry, the insights that we have, right? Don't put it on us, subject to change. Now, let's come back to the topic at hand. How do we know our enemies? Year on year, our adversaries, their tactics change, right? And align with what I'm going to talk about, half of which today is really some insights into the 2026 GTR, or Global Threat Report. We call it the Global Threat Report. Every year, we create this report. And just to set a bit of context to start this off, the Global Threat Report gives us an insight of the adversarial view, right? Year on year, we see how the trends change year on year. We use this report to also then potentially identify or forecast or predict what we can expect within this year itself based on what we've seen from the adversaries in the preceding year. Now, as you can see, this is 2026, and we've had this report for over 10 years now, right? So we've been tracking on certain number of stats year on year. And every year, we've got a theme. In 2026, the theme is that this is the year of the evasive adversaries. The previous year, just a bit of insights for everyone on the call as well. 2025, the theme was the enterprising adversaries, right? This year, evasive. Why evasive? Because what we saw was our enemies, the adversaries, they're becoming a lot more silent, invasive, faster, harder to stop, right? And I think it's also aligned with how we're starting to see, even ourselves as defenders, how we're using AI to better defend ourselves. We are already now seeing as well adversaries combining AI enabled tradecraft with their TTPs, right? So, bottom line of this is that year on year, the global threat report gives us that level of insights. Now, in 2026, six of the key themes that I've highlighted or summarized here briefly is around number one, AI, how adversaries are adopting AI. 2025, last year, one of the themes we saw was adversaries testing. They were experimenting on the use of AI. And we saw some of those adversaries, like famous Kalima, using AI to create fictitious LinkedIn profiles in order to get themselves hired in the target organizations that they're trying to get into. Right now, in 2026, they're not just testing; they're adopting those AI TTPs itself. The second item here in the theme is we're also seeing how ransomware adversaries, right? The ransomware has always been there, it's never changed, but how these adversaries are leaning in and leveraging off of the gaps that we have today, right? Expanding across cross domains. From a defense perspective, this is one of our biggest problems as defenders because we from the traditional siloed solutions that gave out a lot of gaps in between, and adversaries live within the gaps, right? We know that. The third one is, of course, the China Nexus threat adversaries, right? Targeting, focusing on the network perimeter, primarily because, again, the network perimeter, like your VPN concentrators, your firewalls, your network devices, historically, they're built with no strong agent-based security solutions in there, and they are known to have tons of vulnerabilities. From a defense perspective, I'll talk briefly later on as well. One of the biggest challenges that we have is really patching on vulnerabilities, knowing which are the risks and vulnerabilities that we need to patch. And again, adversaries here, they're targeting on those, right? The fourth theme of the GTR itself is around how adversaries continue to lean on the supply chain, right? The supply chain based attacks, being evasive there because they exploit our trust of the traditional supply chain controls. The last 2 points here, largely around how, again, they are shaping zero-day exploits, leaning in the use of that. And last but not least, whilst the adversaries are attacking cross domains, cloud is still the increasing domain or threat vector that the adversaries are targeting today, right? Now, I spoke a little about what the global threat report is. I mentioned, let's understand our enemies. Who are our enemies, right? In CrowdStrike, we track adversaries year on year. These are the adversaries. These are the enemies, right? And year on year, we are tracking a growing ecosystem of threat adversaries. In 2026, we tracked 24 new adversaries in total, right? Bringing that to a total of 281, of which one stat of interest is that 150 malicious clusters that you're seeing here. 150 malicious clusters are essentially clusters of potential adversaries that we are actively monitoring, but they may not have enough confidence to have attributed to a full-blown adversary, right? So what this really highlights is that there is not just the 280, but there are lots more that we are continuously monitoring, as they may emerge later on as adversaries for us uh, in the potential future global threat report itself. Now, we also track where those countries come from in terms of the adversaries. And each country, each source, as you could see from the adversary names itself, we've sort of named them based on a adversarial animal, right? And in this case, in 2026, we saw some additional countries there. Belarus, right, is an emergence of that. Last year in 2025, we saw the emergence of Kazakhstan there as well. So we're seeing new countries where adversaries are coming out of. Now, Ben sort of mentioned earlier on about a number. Now he sort of, Ben, you've already sort of highlighted the key metric of the whole presentation, but I'll talk a little on this as well, right? The breakout time. The breakout time is one key metric that we have tracked year on year every year, and one of the key things that's really stark in this number is that year on year this number obviously has gone down. What is the breakout time? Breakout time in our definition is the time it then takes from an adversary to achieve lateral movements once they have gained initial access. Let me take a pause there to let it sink in first, right? It's between the time of initial access, once they've gotten initial access, to achieving lateral movement. Now, why is it that we talk about it from an initial access perspective, right? Because again, from a adversarial standpoint, before initial access, there is a very dynamic time period of reconnaissance, etc. There's too much to actually factor in. But what we do know is that once they've got initial access, that is the time that we as defenders, that is the response time that we need to address on, right? Year on year, this number has gone down, right? In 2025's global threat report, the average was down to 48 minutes. As Ben has sort of broken the jar, right? The 2026 threat report, that number has gone down to 29 minutes. 29 minutes is less than the time that I have today to talk about this entire webinar itself, because I've got 30 minutes, right? That's the time it takes for the average breakout time from 48, 29. As defenders on this call, though, right, have we gotten 65% faster in the way we defend or we respond to threats? That's one question that, I'd like everyone to think about, right? Because the attackers, the enemies, they're getting 65% faster. One additional stat from the average breakout time, we also monitor the fastest breakout time. And the fastest breakout time is gone at 27 seconds, not minutes, seconds. Right? This was done by a adversary we were tracking, Punk Spider. Again, so they achieved this fastest breakout time less than 30 seconds, less than the time that I take to even make a cup of coffee as well. So that's some of those key stats. That's the enemies itself. Now let's take a step back from the enemy's point of view to us knowing ourselves. Now I mentioned as well in the art of war, you know yourself, you need to know your enemy, and then you need to know yourself, right? Now the biggest problem that we have from a defender perspective, is that there are traditional challenges that we are seeing, right? From a cybersecurity defense perspective, every year there are trends that shape the cybersecurity world. This year it is AI, right? From a defender perspective, AI has changed the entire landscape altogether from a defense technology perspective, but also from a inside view, we need to see different ways to address this challenge. Three key things that I often see or I often hear from customer CISOs themselves. Number one is they're really concerned around how AI is being adopted by our adversaries, right? I mentioned just now one of the stat, AI enabled adversaries, and we see almost a 90% increase of such attacks by adversaries using AI tradecraft. So that's a massive concern. And you've probably also heard about the frontier AI, the real cutting edge of AI. Now, you've heard about frontier AI like Mythos, right? Uh, GPT, right? And what that meant from a readiness resilience perspective, where AI now by itself, frontier AI, was able to identify software weaknesses that we as humans and software and tools and processes have never seen over 20 years, right? So that's a huge challenge around how AI is being weaponized. Now, as defenders, as organizations lean on AI to improve our businesses, AI itself has sort of expanded the attack surface from an attacker standpoint as well. And one of this biggest challenge, and I challenge everyone on this call here, is that when we speak with our customers around being AI ready, our customers don't know. In fact, two-thirds of our customers base, CISOs that I speak to, don't know what are the risks that AI is going to pose for them, right? Customer CISOs are standing up AI governance, AI teams to investigate the end-to-end risks around how Gen AI or AI projects that they're developing, what are the policies, what are the guardrails they need to implement. So they have a huge blind spot today, coupled with our traditional security challenge. Security is at an all-time complexity high. Our defenders today, again, benchmarking on this, we see almost over 60% security teams have traditionally ignored alerts because there's just too much that they've seen. Let's focus a little deeper into AI itself, right? AI has a dual threat to it. AI, not only is AI being leaned on by the adversaries, right, as part of their TTPs, right, adversaries themselves are attacking the AI infrastructures that we are building as well. Now, in 2025, what are the different kind of AI TTPs or tools that we've seen adversaries use, right? One of the key things is historically attacking an organization requires a high level of skill set from a adversarial perspective. and they need to do it slow, and they need to hide from all the defense systems that we've got, right? What we've seen in this threat report, though, is that we've seen attacks potentially already automated by AI. We've also seen malware, AI based malware. Let that sink in a little, right? From an adversarial standpoint, attackers no longer need to know how to create malwares. We found a malware, right? It's called Lamehug. It's AI generated. So an attacker can create GPT based, AI, using AI to create malwares of what they want to create. What that meant was that this really introduced an ecosystem of adversaries where lower skilled adversaries or actors can now get in here to start using AI prompts to generate attack sequences, whereby higher skilled attackers, they're using these tools to scale and accelerate their attacks as well, right? So now I spoke about the fastest breakout time just now, 27 seconds, right? And we've seen it's not just about time, but how they achieve the time. And we've seen that where the adversaries themselves are using AI to make their attacks faster and more accurate. Let me share one stat that is very, very close to every one of us. I'm sure everyone on this call may have received some form of phishing email, right? Now, we are cybersecurity professionals. It is easy for us to identify. Well, I'll say it's easy for me, right? It's easy for us to identify spam email or phishing email when it happens because we can see some telltale signs. There are vocabulary issues here, there are punctuation issues there, whatnot, right? AI has changed that game altogether. In the previous global threat report, we saw how adversaries using AI generating such phishing campaigns, they had a over 50% click-through rate versus if they do not use AI for that, right? Now, what that meant was an AI generated phishing campaign had a lot more success because you don't have all the problems of the vocabulary and punctuational issues, right? We saw that. And we also saw adversaries like the famous Kalima, right? They are a really, really strong adversaries that we've been tracking year on year. They use AI tools to create fictitious LinkedIn profiles. They use AI to help them get hired in the tech companies that they're trying to get into as well. So it's making them a lot more precise and faster because AI helps them to scale. That's the problem. Now, in AI itself, the problem has sort of expanded multiple folds, right? As a human, as an individual, my login potentially have access to only the data that I am allowed to access on. But as we develop AI, not only does AI have more access to all the backend systems, the AI is now much more integrated. Now, you may have heard of terms like MCPs, right? Model Context Protocol. MCP allows AI agents or AI itself to interact with the real world. It allows AI to interact with our systems, right? It's a plugin layer between AI models and our traditional enterprise systems, right? So what's that mean? AI agents by itself is gonna be a huge attack surface, right? Historically, we're trying to protect users, us, identities. Now, AI agents themselves is going to be a massive attack surface because these AI agents have much more access. They've got unrestricted access potentially in most cases. So if there is no guardrails around that, that's going to be a huge problem around prompt injections and other types of attacks. Now, I sort of alluded to this earlier on as well, right? How SOC operations has been so complex, right? That where you've got your contextual gap between fragmented data across multiple systems. Our analysts, on average, receives over 10,000 alerts a day. Imagine that, right? How we gonna address that threats? No one is equipped to look at 10,000 alerts and investigate on all that. We need a better way. We need a better way of responding to this. And so that leads me to um, the approach, the innovation that's relevant for this, right? And the way CrowdStrike we see it is that everything begins with telemetry. AI is a data play, right? AI learns. So if you don't have data, you don't have telemetry, AI is useless. From a defense perspective, same thing as well. So telemetry comes from a sensor. The single sensor allows us to ingest once the foundation of the platform, trillions of events, make sure that that's unified across the entire platform so that the data can be used across domain, right? And enriching that data with our understanding of the adversaries. Again, know yourself, know your enemies, right? With that, we couple that towards an AI native platform, right? That platform allows us to reuse that data everywhere. And with the insights of our adversaries, and the power of AI, automate the response so that we can disrupt the enemy across all the domains that we have. Now, I mentioned about the platform, I mentioned about the domains, right? And I just want to briefly share with everyone from a CrowdStrike perspective. This is a snapshot of our approach to stop breaches, right? In order for us to stop breaches, to help prevent cross domain attacks, to stop, to secure AI everywhere. And in order for us to help accelerate the security operations transformation in our customers' environment, we need this single platform. The platform don't just work from the telemetry. It uses the telemetry to provide unified protection across all the different pillars so that there is no gaps in between. We enhance that with AI, right? But we do not take humans out of the equation. In fact, we have a human led agentic security operations center as the outcome, right? This gives us real time threat hunting, threat intelligence, understanding the adversaries, and with that, close the loop to make sure that we stop breaches. Now, I'm going to close out with the outcome that we're trying to address here, the issues that we have, right? The problem statement around how adversaries are using AI to weaponize. The outcome, we're going to stop AI accelerated adversaries. We're going to secure AI everywhere. And last but not least, we need to do this by driving an agentic SOC transformation. In order for us to do this, we use the platform that I mentioned earlier on, the CrowdStrike platform. And the platform itself is market tested, not just from us, not just from our customers, validation from independent testing like MITRE, right? Like the Forrester, as well as the MQ, Magic Quadrants, right? Really, really proud for all these. Now, I know I'm on time, so I'm going to end off with a very quick follow up here and an offer, right? Again, know your enemies, know yourselves, and if you need help to drive this, we've got proof of values, POVs. We've got workshops, we've got executive briefings and assessments that we can help drive a view of your risks within your environment, right? Then with that, help you know and understand yourself so that we can drive an agentic SOC transformation. My name is Halim. I'm from CrowdStrike, and I run solutions architects for JPEG, based out of Australia. Thank you very much. Ben, back to you.
Halim, thank you very much, Halim, and really detailed presentation there as well. Just a reminder to the audience who are watching, if you do have any questions for Halim, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A panel on the right-hand side. Halim, we did receive a question just a moment ago, which I think you may have touched on in your previous slide here. I'll just bring it up onto the stage. Give me 1 second. About CrowdStrike's rating with the MITRE results as well. I think I was on your previous slide there, as I said, but any insights you can provide there?
MITRE is a very, very technical evaluation. And I am really happy for the person who asked that, right? They evaluate around how the tools is able to detect, protect against a certain TTP or adversarial tradecraft. And they also track on one key stat on whether the tool has any false positives, right? I am proud to say that we have always achieved 100% detection, 100% protection with 0 false positives, right? Really, really good outcome from that testing from MITRE itself.
Fantastic. Thanks, Halim. And again, thanks so much for confirming those details there as well. I'll just see if any other questions coming through the Q&A panel there as well, Halim. But I mean, really, I think it's the nature of this topic, isn't it, in the sense that you can look at these results, these emerging trends and what's happening right now, and obviously feel very deeply concerned about the threat landscape that exists. But I think, as you were saying from the very outset of the presentation there, I think the more educated that we are as individuals and as organizations about our own vulnerabilities and the threat landscape, the better protected we can be in order to actually respond faster to this emerging landscape as well.
Yep.
Fantastic. Looks like I don't have any other questions at this stage in time, Halim, but again, for those who are watching, we will send you the recording of this webinar. So by all means, if you think of something else, and please feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to liaise with CrowdStrike directly to make sure you get the information they need. Halim, on that note, thank you once again for your time and taking us through this very important report from CrowdStrike. And again, we do look forward to welcoming you all to our next Subnet session very soon. So please stay tuned during your inbox for the next update about that one. In the meantime, Halim, thank you once again for your insights, and I really look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Ben, happy to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll be in touch soon. Thanks for watching today.